We are back for our very first roundtable of 2021, where we do these we have the potential of doing them on 3 Saturdays a month. We have our Together Tech board meetings to create the Global Cooperative Technology Company on the first Saturday of every month. And the other 3, if there's interest, we will be holding roundtables. A roundtable, we come and share what we've been up to in the last week or since our last update, and what we would like to get out of the meeting if there's anything anyone can help us with. And then we brainstorm those solutions to the problems we had, as well as if there's someone who wants to be in the hot seat and wants more concentration on their project, we do that. And if anyone wants to join, if you're in the Facebook group, no one's watching right now, no one's going to watch the replay until after, so never mind, that doesn't make sense. So Adriel, do you want to start with your update? I've made no notes, and so I can think of mine in the meantime, or I can wing it.
Sure, yeah, no, I can go. So I've been working with Matoush/Radek, which is the same person, and he has been the programmer working on the prototype for WikiLection, which is my project. That seems to be going well. Still waiting for the prototype to get moved to the live version so I can sort of show it off a bit more and use it. And I finally put out a job posting on Upwork like a couple days ago for some help with marketing, writing, social media posts, that type of thing. So I've got a few things to go through there, and hopefully we'll hire someone there over the next couple of days, which should help me start to put out more content regularly.
Would it be appropriate or welcome for me to ask questions?
Sure.
Absolutely. After, should we finish the roundtable first? It's generally, though okay. That's just my brain needs to go the way that they normally do. That's all. Because that also, I don't know, James, if you also have a project that you would like to give us an update on, which I would also love to hear. And then, yeah, all the questions, all the comments for each other's projects. So I have, as always, I'm my main project, and that is going well. I'm still alive, still kicking, still. And the 2 solution raising has been on hiatus since I think early December, just because I don't have a way of getting people there regularly. I do really want to do a solution raising. I mean, Bentley's not here today. He's in Texas. One of the people who I meet with every Wednesday is in Texas from Game B. And I think about my other people I know and love in Texas and how much they're dealing with right now, and wanting to have a solution raising on natural disasters. Because if we can't rely on our governments and we can't rely on the people who are in the natural disaster, right? How do they give you food when they don't have it? How do we support each other, and how do we deal with those things for the next one? Because we clearly can't do much for this one. So that is just percolated in my mind. I'll probably be posting it in the game, in the new Game B space. And there's like an events part of that also is really cool, although I've yet to attend an event, so I don't quite know what it looks like, whether it's an external Zoom link or that kind of thing. And then, of course, my other project is what we were calling Meta Learning Magic, and we're figuring out a new name for it, is going well in that I have 2 people on the project, and we are meeting every week and figuring out how we move it forward. And also, like, even the things that aren't going well, because I took on filling the 3 courses, or 2 of the courses. Raymond was going to fill his own for this coming week, and it looks like mine's going forward, maybe Raymond's going forward, neither with a full allotment, and Kylie's isn't going forward. And so it's like we didn't have enough people, and so figuring out ways to get people, it's like the 6-week course is the sample product, but having a sample product to get to the sample product seems to be the way to go for Game B people. So letting people try peer coaching, kind of like we did that one day here, right, on the crowdsourcing. I was like, let's try it and see if it works, and we did that. So doing something like that, that's just a one-off and not a 6-week course, so people can sign up for the 6-week course. And so I don't really need anything with it besides to have patience that it's going to happen in its right time, and the right people are going to come around at the right time, which is one of my biggest learnings the last few weeks, is I can't save everyone. I can only offer it to the people who it's going to resonate with, or I can offer it to everyone. The people it resonates with are the people who are coming on board, and that's great. So that is where my projects are in the morning. And I would love to hear from James what your project is and where you're at with it.
Thanks. I actually have 2 things to share about, but I don't know, they're both pretty important to me. But one that I intended to speak about is called Concordus, and you can find it at concordus.io, and it is intended to be a disinformation killer. So we have, by all intents and, just to do an intro, not an update, because you've never heard of the project before, probably. So the intro would be, there is no damage control for disinformation right now. People can lie, and decades later, those lies still poison the public mind. We can be divided and conquered pretty effectively. We're in an information war. No one knows what's true or can prove to the people who they disagree with that they're right, or be shown that they're mistaken. So it's a pretty serious situation that we're in, very, very dangerous. And so there is a dynamic that goes on called power struggle. Power struggle is where two people are talking and nobody's listening, right? So I can go into this topic for a long time, but basically the way to overcome that dynamic is collaboration, surprisingly. So to compete further with somebody who just is using competition to create further divisiveness is never going to work. So collaboration is actually the key. So what we do is I created a media model, an online platform to basically bring people into a shared reality where they don't agree with each other on all points already. And so the thing about it is that there is a medium of communication or a document type that supports that kind of building of a shared reality. It's called an argument map or a mind map. And so basically we can center the conversation or the controversy, and we can have everybody's perspective included as first-class citizens on the document. And that way the document is relevant to everyone, and everyone can have the same conversation, seeing the same evidence, presented in a neutral and clear way that can be challenged by thought leaders from any side. So the thing is, the mechanisms that provides are, number one is people can have a document to refer to when they disagree with their in-laws on Thanksgiving, and instead of getting into a power struggle that goes nowhere, they can actually have a productive conversation that helps to build some shared reality between them. If they're not satisfied with the quality of the document, they can actually crowdfund a further, more complete document that better represents the ideas that they think are missing. So the thing about the document type is when there's an accusation of bias or incompleteness or irrelevancy or whatever, there's a feedback loop that creates the document more relevant and more complete over time. And that actually, you can crowdfund a long attention span on a topic. So we don't just fly to another controversy without resolving the previous controversies. We can actually crowdfund enough resources to get the attention, if not, and participation of, if not a thought leader who is a disinformation agent who would be coming forward and, addressing the strongest evidence that undermines their narrative, we would at least be able to reach their audience and ask their audience, why doesn't your thought leader come and educate us all on this? We're really curious about it. So that's the quality of collaboration is, I hear you say that you don't believe what I'm saying. I want to live in a shared reality with you. We're in the same community. Let's collaborate. I'm giving you a red carpet to prove me wrong and humiliate your political enemies. So why are you not accepting that invitation? We'll even pay you for your time, actually. So that's the essence of it. Yeah. So I'm basically in a position right now where I have enough of it tested and enough of it working that I'm looking for people to give me feedback on it, to say, okay, let's do a walkthrough. Let's see what the features are. Let's see where they are. Let's see where the bumps are. Let's see what is totally confusing and doesn't make sense to a new user, and then kind of build it up. I'm looking for kind of partners and board members and, any kind of person like that who basically wants to, forward something that I think has a real chance to actually cut through disinformation really, really quickly. So, yeah, I'd love to show it to you sometime. And that's one thing which I think is super important for sense making, which I think is one of the major things for Game B, is to have us all on the same page around something called the truth, or at least to be in a shared reality about what we call truth. But the other thing is actually what I think of as the most important topic in Game A, which is active measures or ideological subversion, which is something that most people haven't heard of, but it's a process to destroy open societies. And we have the blueprint from a KGB defector who defected in 1970, was found by the Soviet Union in the 80s and then decided to just spill the beans on his whole thing that he was working on to destroy East Pakistan in 1970, which then East Pakistan turned into Bangladesh in 1971 through a revolution. But the revolution, history books don't have Russia's fingerprints on them at all. So it's super interesting, super important. And what is really, really interesting about it is that you see what he talked about and you see American history over the last 40 or more years, and what he talks about has already come to pass. And so we're actually right on the brink of a crisis, the crisis phase, which is phase 3. So things like discredit any shared source of truth, like the media, science, elections, FBI investigations, the courts, politicize religion, create racial animosity, create party antagonisms, create doubt and suspicion and distrust of law and order, like the police. All of these things are like big billboards, neon flashing signs, like these are the major themes in American society today, and they're included in the blueprint that he left in the mid-'80s. So I'd like everybody to know about it right away. I think it's happening. I would love somebody to push back or let me know that they agree with me, because basically, I just want to create community around it because I think it's happening. I think it's pretty clear. And so that's the other thing. You can find that on activemeasurespod.com, which is not a very complete site at all. But again, I'd love feedback on it to say, well, this doesn't make sense, or I think you're reaching here, or this is a stretch, or I think we need more information about X, Y, and Z. And just so you know, like my last thing, thank you so much for your patience and listening. But one of the very super interesting things about the active measures process that I've noticed is humans have blind spots, social blind spots that are exploited by narcissists, right? So narcissists are struggling with their own shame all the time, and they're hiding in plain sight. They just like to do something other than talk about how much shame they carry. So they're hiding something, and they manipulate other people. They emotionally destabilize them. They lie to them in a certain specific kind of a way, which is called reality upside down. They triangulate people. And so what we see is actually active measures is like taking those techniques of narcissists that work because of social blind spots that most people have, and using them against the public through mass media. So the whole divide and conquer thing is just a big triangulation process. Lying reality upside down is like, well, Joe Biden insisted that the Ukrainian prosecutor be fired because the prosecutor was corrupt. Well, reality upside down is Joe Biden was actually corrupt when he insisted on doing that. Stuff like that. Or, there are a million other examples. So, and then, emotional destabilization doesn't really, Darvo, I could mention Darvo. So Darvo is, you say something I don't want to have a talk about, and I immediately do Darvo, which is I deny, I attack, and I reverse victim and oppressor. So if I'm Kellyanne Conway in an interview and a question comes up that I don't want to ask, I turn it back on the person as if they're victimizing me with their question, that it's totally inappropriate what they're asking. And for the people who are identified with Kellyanne Conway, they just see her being offended like a normal person, but actually it's just a technique that you can see it having been used for decades to avoid having conversations. And you can see it even today being used. And unfortunately, people, again, because of their blind spot, until you point it out to them, they'll never notice on their own, oh, wow, that person used Darvo again. They just think it's like a good faith, natural communication based on the person getting their feelings hurt or being challenged in a way that crossed their boundaries, their emotional boundaries, stuff like that. So anyway, it's super fascinating. I think it's incredibly important, and it has so much potential to transform society, the understanding about these things. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your listening.
James, I'm just going to pop this up on the screen. Daniel says that he would love to do some testing. I know he's got his project in the launch phase at the moment and is very busy, but he would like to. As well, I was wondering if you could type in the comments box what your project is, what the URL is. I was trying to look it up and I found something blockchain. It was not what I think I don't think it's what you're doing. So yeah, then we can pop it up on the screen and also put it in in the description for the YouTube video if you want.
Okay, so I do it. I've never used the system before, so I put it in the private chat or in the comments?
In the comments, because then we can pop it up on the screen. I think private chat we can't.
Oh, I see. Well, when I click on comments, I don't see a text area to.
Okay, it might not be there. Maybe I can put it in, or what is it called?
Concordis.io. So it's CONCORDIS.io.
That actually goes somewhere. If I spelled it right. All right. You have an almost butterfly in your logo, like a little flowery.
Kind of, yeah.
The first thing when I saw it that I thought of. It's not a butterfly, but I will put it in here, which I think I'm a Facebook user as opposed to me, but that's fine. Oh, good. Together Tech, that is. So that is the one. I know you can't click on it from, I believe, the links. We'll also put it in the description for YouTube, and we can also put it in the comment section of both the new Game B space and the old Game B space.
Awesome.
And you want it to be public, yes? So although you're looking
Absolutely.
for direct collaborators right now, it's okay
Mm-hmm.
if strangers we've never met come in and test it out. And okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So now, because my guess is we're going to get into sense making. We get so many sense making projects. It's all sense making projects.
We really do.
And but first, I would like to kind of just put the roundtable in the hot seat of like, how do we communicate with the group of people who is Game B projects that have projects and want to do these updates? Because I keep getting, when are you going back to roundtables? And then we come and it's the same four of us again and again. It's really nice to see a new face, James, and Daniel, of course, comes too. But it's anyway, so what do we do so that we're communicating it in advance so people can make schedules, figure out the time difference? Because I think Daniel thought that this was at 3 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. PST because it's 3 p.m. EST, right? It's like easy to kind of get those two things if we're putting them down. So I'm thinking, my thoughts on it are that if there's instead of not putting up StreamYard necessarily, but putting up a post that says, is there interest for this Saturday, and having people sign up and say yes, and people can vote on who they want to be in the hot seat, right? Which are probably not going to be our 4 projects because we do them so often and we're probably sick of them. So any new person, yes, unless we have a big thing. But anyway, posting in there so people can vote on which project they want to be in the hot seat, but just seeing is their interest, right? Is it just us or is it other people? And are they going to come? And then if people continually say, yes, I want to be there, and then they don't show up, we'd stop holding them. And then if there is people who show up, then we hold them and we know beforehand, right? So it's not just the 2 of us or the 3 or 4 of us doing it. So any other thoughts on how we could get it done?
That makes sense. With the new Game B portal member area, whatever you want to call it, I imagine that there's a lot less noise there. So like, how much are we posting it there? I haven't tried it out yet, but I know that in the past we've sort of complained about Facebook being like our only choice at the time, and it was okay for that, but it was also, it's really easy to get lost amongst all the other stuff going on Facebook, and the algorithm not always showing stuff it should, etc. I guess just to hope that if we start posting it there and we start to get some base there, it should get a lot more eyeballs.
So I was literally checking that group because I posted our YouTube link to see does it play automatically? Is it there? Okay. That's the easiest way to have it be in there, right? Because the issue is our mechanics of this, right, is that we use StreamYard, and StreamYard streams to YouTube and Facebook. It doesn't stream to third-party Mighty networks, right? Or maybe it does. I don't know. They come up with updates all the time. I don't think we've figured that out in that space yet. Even like Jim Rod's figured, like getting someone to look through the stuff and then post it over to the Facebook one to entice people over there. But there's like a group chat feature, which is kind of just clogged down. It's like, imagine one long comment thread, right? So if you're like, when I posted, it was like, do you want to alert everyone? I was like, no, that seems like I don't want to alert everyone. At the same time, I do want to alert, it doesn't even give me the option of just alerting Game B projects.
Like, you want people to see it when they go check, but you don't want to like send emails and text messages. It isn't an email.
It's just it's a like we all share the same DM, And so you can kind of add and I don't know if you cannot, like, I don't know if I can send just James one or like just you one on there. I'm sure you can, but me, a new technology. I like it. I like a lot of it, which means that it is very somewhat user friendly. But yeah, we're still figuring. It's not necessarily because the Game B people have to be on that website and then looking for it. So you're going to get more actual interaction, hence why James is here. But you're not going to get it to pop up into someone's Facebook feed, right? Or pop up in there. So we can't. It's like their attention has to be on the site, and then it has to find it within that, and we don't have much control over it. Oh yeah, I think we can make events, and maybe that might work with, I don't know though whether we can make, are you interested in this events, right? Which is what we kind of want, is like, or create it every week and say, if there's 2 people or 1 person who's not us, we will hold it, right? And so we don't count, but other people do. That makes sense.
I think you can do that on Mighty Networks, pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that's worth testing out. And even like saying, sort of having the same messaging across the board, where like, if we get 2 hands raised on any platforms, then we'll hold it, right? Like, so if somebody on Facebook says I'm in and somebody on the Mighty Network says they're in, cool. That's 2. Let's do it.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Because there is something I've been seeing in the Game B project space where like people seem to be pushing to that new area like really hard and like, let's get off Facebook. And like, if they want to, but by all means. But for an audience, currently there's very few things that can match Facebook, like for just sheer number of people and being able to theoretically reach them. And so I think we're a long way away from actually any kind of a divorce with Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had somebody who was trying to become a member of the Game B, just the Game B, the regular one that I'm a mod of. And there was, because he invited a bunch of people and those are the only people I messaged. I'm like, don't invite people. That's not what we do. We just delete those ones. It makes work for us. He was like, well, I'd like invite them directly, right? Reach out to your friend, tell them there's this cool group and then give them the link. And he's like, well, the link to the Mighty Network. So the link to Game B Facebook. I was like, well, right? Like if you're inviting people to it, it makes more sense to invite them to the Facebook one and then they'll be redirected to the other one by everyone posting in that space versus them going there and not knowing people and not knowing what to do. Like, I don't know what the direct route is because that might also, there's people I know who aren't on Facebook and won't participate in that. So having multiple options.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see how the engagement in the new area goes. Because the thing with Facebook is people go on Facebook for any number of reasons. And then if they happen to see a video or a post, oh, cool, they're doing that. But if this is something you have to go check, then I think that will diminish how much engagement there is. And that's not to say that we shouldn't do it, but just that I think it's a long way away from being the main source of sort of information and, the main contact point.
So Bentley's post, the weekly update post that he does, of course he didn't do it this week, but the one from last week he was basically said, like, we're doing them there. And so there's more new people who've stated their projects in there than I think there was in the other one. And so I think that it does, because I will go check that part of it, right? I mean, I know I haven't done I can't type out my update. This is where I can give my update. But reading other people's, or when I do feel I can do that, I think that's one of our engagement metrics, right? So it's going better there. So, all right. Now we can move on to sense making. How do we make the world make sense? I don't know if you know James Bentley, the other person who founded Together Tech, is also
I know
a sense
Reason
maker.
Score. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know him from the Canonical Debate Lab. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. Cool. And there's actually another person that shows up fairly regularly, who's the developer I mentioned. He goes by Matoush in chats and also by Radek. He has a thing that I think is effectively sense making. It's hard to explain, kind of like a Canvas version of a wiki, I guess, like with interlinked tables.
What's it called?
Oh God, Hyperlogos.
Oh, I haven't heard about that one.
Yeah, it gave
a
me
lot of people have those.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all the different aspects that people are attacking the misinformation issue on. It's
a lot of potential for benefit there.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what I hope keeps happening. And that's one of the things I like about Game B is the competition, but not competition. like how your project and my project and Bentley's and Matouche's are kind of in competition, but like I want that because there's a very decent chance that mine doesn't take off. I want 100 of these, so if one takes off, awesome.
Success.
Yeah.
Different levels of success. Any of them working to create a shared reality for everyone. Incredible, world-changing benefit.
Yeah, I think as Bentley and Matouche and I talk, at least I'm starting to see, and I think I'm sort of hearing hints from them as well. We're sort of seeing all the areas where ours kind of overlap and could interact. Because mine is sort of like a pie in the sky, like pretty much everyone I show it to, they're like, that's huge. Like that's a huge lift, a massive project. I'm like, yeah, it is. But I think it actually could use components of Reason Score and of Hyperlogos. And it seems like Concordis is like an alternate take on what Reason Score is trying to do from what you were saying, like sort of trying to map a debate, which I guess it makes sense if you're coming from the canonical debate lab. That seems to be a theme.
Yeah, lots of overlap with a lot of projects there. What makes it different is that we have, we have features to invite in people through their verified Twitter accounts. Like if you believe that Sean Hannity has said something that wasn't true once or twice, you can actually challenge him and invite him and challenge him with real money. So the public, if they're uncomfortable, they can crowdfund attention on that, which would mean just hiring someone to make sure that he's aware that he's being challenged and to place ads on his TV show, if that's what it takes. Do demonstrations outside Fox News, whatever, or just pay somebody to post on social media to notify his audience that he's being challenged and we'd like his input in order to better understand reality from his perspective. So anyway, all that sounds good. So anyway, I'm trying to see if it's actually good.
The crowdsourcing metric and stuff. So if you have someone who you're like, I don't think that's right, and you want them to come on and debate. I don't know quite what the methodology is, but are they getting paid to do the debate part, or are they getting paid to do if they get it right? Right? If you can come prove your point, you get this money, or they don't get paid, they just get to come prove their point, and it's more the money goes towards getting them there, like the advertising.
Yeah. People would be paid for their time if that's what they needed, if they were significant enough. Like Sean Hannity can't be expected to come for free, or many, many other people are super busy. They have millions of people in their audience. Their time isn't free. So they could be paid a fair amount to come and fill it in. But they've made so many public statements already that their opinions are all over the place. They can be linked for free, without having to pay them, but they could come and give new information. The thing about disinformation agents, so this is a little bit of an aside that is a burning share for me. So the thing about disinformation agents is that they're lying on purpose, which means we should assume at this point that people are lying on purpose. I think to be healthy and to protect ourselves, we should definitely be holding that perspective until proven otherwise. So the thing about them is that they will never mention the strongest evidence that contradicts what they say. So in an argument map, you basically take every idea and you separate it from every other idea so it can be assessed on its own merits. And you'll see, by seeing how many times Sean Hannity has said that the Russia investigation was a hoax, and the fact that he's never, I would bet you a significant amount of money, he's never mentioned that Paul Manafort shared internal campaign polling data with a Russian agent. He's probably never addressed the fact that that's in the Mueller report. That is really important. I'd like him to address that and to let his audience and all of us know, why has he not mentioned that, and how does it jibe with his assertion that it was all a hoax when there was tons of evidence of collusion, tons of evidence of obstruction of justice? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, so that's it. But would people be paid? Yeah, people would be paid. This is all a work in progress. My hypothesis at this point is people are in a lot of discomfort, actually, personally, interpersonally, as communities, and as a nation and a world, where we have acute pain, a lot of acute pain on every level, with no good options for how to make meaningful progress on that. So people will be willing to pay a little bit of money in the hope that they can become more comfortable and resolve climate change or vaccines and autism, these conversations that have been around for 20 years never seem to get resolved. So, just in good faith, Concordis will take some percentage for its own upkeep and profit, and then the rest of it will go towards good faith, just creating a shared reality, whatever we think will help that, inviting in thought leaders who disagree with each other to come and rebut each other's assertions, just linking to the assertions that already exist on the internet. Those are actually real benefits. Or letting we can get into the audiences and promote the fact that the challenge exists to the audiences of the people who refuse to cooperate and refuse to acknowledge evidence. So that's a way to actually have a cost to the person for lying. There has to be a cost to lie, and that would be undermining their own credibility in the audience that's taken them decades to generate, right? And so all of their allies would also lose credibility. Fox News loses credibility if Sean Hannity loses credibility, for example. So it's like, so anyway, that's kind of how the money would flow at this point. I don't know. But I think I'm kind of homing in on where we want to be. And I think some aspects of that are we just want to be having the same conversation. That's a minimum, so.
Can I point out some possibly broken incentives?
Totally.
Or ways to
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Sean Hannity, I don't like Sean Hannity. So if he says something that I don't, you know what I mean, that's a lie, that's misinformation. I want someone to prove that. I don't want him getting paid to come on a place. I don't want him incentivized to lie so that he, you know what I mean? People are like, hey, that you can come and be part of this. But yeah. I was thinking, I don't want the people I don't like to get paid. But I think what I do want is I'd be okay with somebody I liked matched up with somebody I don't like, because I think the person I like is going to win in a debate type of format. So I'm okay crowdfunding for that, even though it's getting split amongst them or something, right?
So I'm with you on that. I thought about that. And so I built in a feature where you don't actually pay the person. You promise to pay a high quality, nonpartisan charity of their choice, according to charity, can't remember the name of the sites, like Charity Navigator or something like that. So they have ratings for who's the most, effective and transparent charities, and 5-star charities who are non-partisan in the judgment of Concordis is the judge of that quality. But then the person gets a benefit, but they don't actually get the benefit themselves. So and the beauty of that is we could, anyway, we can ally with charities and say, okay, well, they didn't come forward, so we're going to ally with you. You have 1 million members. We're going to give you the money if you can get that, if you can apply pressure to them and get them to pay attention to us or something like that. And I really haven't figured out all the incentives yet, but I did think about that one.
I'm curious, in that example, what charity do we think that Sean Hannity would choose? And do we think that then Jubilee would be okay with that charity getting the money?
Yeah, I don't know, have any nonpartisan high quality charity. It could be Free the Slaves. It could be, Feeding the Hungry, or Habitat for Humanity, or I don't know. I don't know what Sean Hannity likes.
So
but anything,
what do you consider partisan for a charity? Do you mean politically partisan, or if it's a religious charity?
The NRA would probably not be okay. Religious charity might be okay. I don't know. That's a pretty broad category. But
yeah, more like Planned Parenthood versus, pro-life, right? That's very dear and dear to whichever heart you're in. And yet Planned Parenthood isn't actually partisan. They're there for people's health, and they happen to give out birth control, or not give out, sell birth control and abortions, right? So it's partisan. It's partisan even if I'm on their side, because there'd be people who are I'm absolutely not okay with my money going there. So it's more neutral-ish places, who's going to be I'm not okay with freeing the slaves, even if they're not 100% okay with that charity and exactly everything they do, their overarching mission or something.
Thank you. That's the spirit of it. That's not what I communicated, but that's the spirit of what I intended to communicate. So thank you. That's super great feedback.
And then James, you had a question near the beginning?
I had a question.
Or something to say?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to hear about your projects more, because from an intro level.
Okay, yeah, I guess I kind of skipped what it actually does and everything. So Wikilection, which now / in the future will also go by the name Conferati, is a tool to fight misinformation. That's sort of the short form. I don't really like talking about fighting misinformation because everyone says they does it, or everyone says they're trying to do that. Like even Fox News and MSNBC and all of the players who people would argue are not participating in good faith. The goal isn't just to fight misinformation; it's to provide information that earns your trust. So it's putting the onus on the site, saying if you don't believe information, good, stay there, start there, and then we're going to work with you to provide information in a way that earns your trust. So if you see it and you don't trust it, great, tell us why. What do you need in order to trust it? That's not going to be. Some people just won't trust anything that counters their worldview. Fine, you can stay wherever you are. Most likely this is to sort of appeal to the people who aren't sure, the people who see the conflicting narratives and say, I'm not sure who to trust. Both paint a compelling picture. To your point, at least one of them is lying. Probably both. And
how do you accomplish these goals?
Oh boy. So it's very data centric and very sort of community driven. The whole thing started with the idea of WikiElection sort of being IMDb for politics, where the politicians and the people who are playing in that public arena, as they say things, it gets captured permanently on their profile. So if they're doing good things over time and they're being consistent and setting certain trends, that shows, hey, here's what this person does, here's what this person fights against, here's where they get their money from. That type of thing. Then there's also the people who are talking, like the news agencies, the experts that are talking about it. They would also have profiles, because the information now, it's all sort of one big ball of yarn, from science to politics to current events. They all overlap. And so if we're going to bring in experts to talk about climate change or about what an economic report says, or what experts are saying a certain piece of legislation is going to do, it's to be able to record and then dissect all the underlying evidence. And then the people who are doing that dissection and having that conversation, they also have their profiles. So if you see, here's 10 economists all talking about what this piece of legislation means, okay, great. But we know that that piece of legislation benefits, let's say, the oil industry, and those 3 experts are in the pocket of the oil industry. So we're going, so we can, at least through data, say, here's what people who are tied to the industry say, and here's what the experts who have no ties to the industry say. And then probably also, here's people who have ties to the enemy of that industry. You may also want to exclude them and just see that. I guess so the point is to record all of it, and then a part of it will be to then work with the community to see how can we work with this data to actually get to, if you exclude the extremes and and look at how people get their money and look at all this information, who do we think are the good players, and what are they saying in common? If that all made sense.
Yeah, to try to figure out who to trust. Yep.
Right.
And then
exactly.
And also I'm hearing
who to trust in which area.
Sure, right. And I'm hearing that what opinions are converging from different sources, and that shores up those perspectives.
Right. And if there is sort of different themes, like if there's 100 experts and there's sort of 3 common themes among them, great. Do those different camps have something in common? Like, are all the people who are staunchly for it being paid by one group, staunchly against it paid by another group, and then the people in the middle who aren't being paid by either group, if they have a third opinion, okay, this is a controversial issue that's super partisan, and odds are we're in that case where both extremes are lying. And so we then have to say, like, how do we parse all that out? But to find a consistent way to do it so that you're applying the same rules to every situation.
Interesting.
Yeah, have you both watched Daniel Schmachtenberger's War on Sense Making? Especially the first one?
Not yet.
No. But then I won't be able to explain it because I wouldn't be able to explain it even if you had seen it. But this thing you talked about previously, James, of this like disinformation agents that they're like trying to, and there's definitely those out there, but the vast majority of us are disinformation agents, and we're doing it in a way because it's ignorance, right? It's like, I think this is true. I hold this true because there's so much emotion around it, and I can't, like, what's going on in the world right now, I think, has divided us into more than two camps, but two basic camps. And it's like both, and I'm not talking politically, I'm talking about the pandemic and science, and nobody knows what's true. It's like, can you trust, which scientists do you trust? What doctors do you trust? What anything? Do we even know? We've seen this under a microscope. Like, we don't know any of it. And we have so little trust that it's like, I don't know. I'm just not leaving my house for another. Like, I can't trust any of the information coming out. Not what I'm doing to protect myself, or what we're doing to protect each other, not the chance of not getting it, and not the chance of, like, if you get it, what gives you the best, like, none of it. And so sorry, I got a little off topic there. The disinformation agent, you said to, like, assume they're bad actors, basically. It's you probably use different language. And I think that there's both a good to that, right? We probably do want to assume Betty DeVos is intentional in what she's doing. And at the same time, most of us aren't. And so it's not necessarily the intention behind it, it's the actual bad outcome. Because even if you're doing it with the best of intentions, it's still disseminating bad information. And I did also this Darbo idea, which I think I've heard but not actually heard explained. Because to me, you were like, well, some people think that's just an emotional reaction. I'm like, isn't that just an emotional reaction? Like, some of us legitimately have that as our emotional reaction. So how do we tease that apart from, like, they're trying to do it? And should we all be trying to do it? Because also what I find is what you're talking about the other side is never going to give you the best point of the other side. Is I do that. I talk wishy-washy language because I'm like, well, here's the 1% that doesn't apply to. And so no one trusts me. So you have to be confident, and you have to be like, this is the truth. And I'm not even, like, you're not even allowed to point out the other side. In fact, you have to, like, tear down their argument before they ever say it. And so we've built up this ecosystem of crap that no one can trust, and we're all in it together. But, you know, your lack of trust is going to cost me, and our not even owning trust is going to, you know, that we have a problem here. Just, like, shut up and follow which status quo? Which experts would you like me to listen to? Which experts exactly? Anyway,
I'd like, can I jump in? You're covering a lot of things I'd like to address.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to remember everything. So there's also a feature built into Concordis that allows credentialed experts to come and vote on things that they believe or don't believe. And basically what we have, I mean, this is another little bit of a sidetrack, but there's a kind of truth called intersubjectivity, which is the kind of truth that we need right now, which is a more accurate understanding of the word fact, for example. Because fact is a label, and we can get into power struggles about what's a fact and what's not a fact. It really doesn't have any meaning at all. So intersubjectivity is more profound in terms of describing how the world really works in human communities and determining truth. So at one point, Newtonian physics was considered to be a fact, that was the bottom line of the physical universe, and that there was a bell curve of consensus among top physicists, the people we all listen to on that topic. And that center of gravity of that community, where the bell curve is at its highest in the middle, that's really what we want to follow in terms of what's true and what's not true. Because there are going to be people on the edges of any community, and they believe fringe things. And some of them might turn out to be an Einstein, and then the entire community shifts over to them, and then that becomes true for the community. So we don't really know, but the best that we can do is to trust what is the mainstream of the community right now. And so we want to find out what's the mainstream. Like, people care. What do 97% of climate scientists believe? But we're never given the information to actually know what that is. So Concordis makes it possible to go out and actually ask them, and to crowdfund the resources necessary to find them, to vet their credentials, and to ask them and not like what's true or what's not true, but what do they believe, what do they agree with, and what do they disagree with? What information matters to them and informs their opinions, and what information is not compelling to them? That's the information that we need, and unfortunately the media ecosystem that we have right now does not provide us that information. Conspicuously, it doesn't provide that information for us, if you ask me. So that's the truth. So that's part of what you asked. But the Darvo thing is super interesting because people are not I'm into like communication and VC. Safe Conversations is Harville Hendrix' thing. I don't know if you heard of Harville Hendrix. He was on Oprah like 17 times. He and his wife developed something called Safe Conversations. It's a really beautiful thing. And I do couples communication coaching. And so I noticed the dynamics of collaboration and competition, or, vicious power over, power under kind of techniques of like shaming and scapegoating and name calling and things like that. And so Darvo, it's just amazing. It's one of these, because people don't have these skills, people can't notice, oh, that's Darvo, or, oh, that's name calling. That's, an interpretation instead of an observation. That's claiming authority that you don't have. When Sean Hannity does this all the time, he's just declaring what reality is as if he's God, right? He's speaking from the omniscient voice, right? He's just a person with his own perspective. He hasn't seen everything, or he's not like, claiming that authority really as it should be a boundary crossing in society, because he doesn't have the right to declare authority as far as I'm concerned. I would like him to speak using I statements, just speaking from his own authority, which he does have his own authority as a person, but he doesn't have authority to dictate reality for 10 million people. In my perspective, I don't like that. I don't think it helps to have a game be world to have people get away with that kind of thing. So if we upgraded culture so people actually were more connected to the present moment, realize that ideologies actually drive people apart, and feelings and needs and empathy brings us together, we would actually be able to notice all the incredibly abhorrent divisiveness happening on Fox News, the outrage creating rhetoric to shame and scapegoat and other Americans that's been happening every single day on Fox News for 25 years. And we'd say, wow, let's calm that down. I think it's actually not helping. So, but because people don't have these skills, they can't notice them in the moment. And so Darvo it's not conspicuous as a technique that's used over and over and over and over and over again. But when you have people who don't want to engage in conversations on TV, and Newt Gingrich is like a great example of that, you use Darvo. Or when you want, anyway, I could give you a ton of examples and I should put them up on the site, but if you don't want to answer the media's questions, you accuse the media of being the perpetrator, and you claim that you or the public are the victims. And it's just a question. I mean, it just happened the other day with George Stephanopoulos and Rand Paul, where George Stephanopoulos was like, can't you just say that the election was standard and legal? And he couldn't, Rand Paul refused to say it. And he was pushed 3 times. And on the 3rd time, George Stephanopoulos said that the Republicans believe it because Donald Trump lied to them. And then Rand Paul changed the subject and he said, you in the media, you just use the word lie as if that's the truth. And then he totally changed the subject. And obviously he never addressed the evidence that would have him believe that the election wasn't credible. So anyway, it happens, and people don't notice that. So anyway, that's another thing.
Mm-hmm. So just like Darvos, I feel like I do also communicate in that way of like, this is what the world looks like, because it's what is coming up in the moment. And so if I say the best color is red, I understand that that's not the truth for everyone. So is there not like a cultural, like we can kind of more, even those definitive statements aren't definitive statements. Like it's like they're not, like that feels like they're all complex solutions, but like an easier solution than policing everyone's language. But I think putting examples of Darvos where it is done intentionally is a completely different. And I just wanted to get also, you had said ideology drives us apart, but emotions, needs, and something brings us together.
Emotion, feelings and needs, and
I'll rewatch it.
I would just say empathy, I think,
Empathy, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Feelings and empathy,
I'm not talking about policing what people say. I'm saying your life, everybody who hears me, please listen and hear and know that from my perspective, this is the 100% truth that I see really clearly. I believe that everyone's world and life would be so much better if they were to learn communication skills. I can't tell you the amount of problems that are created because people communicate in inaccurate ways, especially between like intimate partners, but also in the public sphere. And if we're going to use Plan B, which I would say is more of a community first kind of a thing, more of a seventh generation, looking out for the seventh generation kind of a thing. It's basically away from the strongman narcissist leader, one person is right, to the community actually has a wisdom that we could follow and actually be much better off. These skills will help, and people can just do it from their own self-interest, not even their own enlightened self-interest, which is to help the people around them and be happier, because the people around them are happier. People themselves will be happier if they learn these skills. They won't need to be policed once they see the benefit for themselves.
I do want to point out that there's my point of bringing up that I both do what you're saying, these people on Fox News, is that for neurodiverse people, we can't necessarily learn new communication styles as easily as other people. What you just said at the beginning was beautifully put. Like when you first started, and I was like I feel blah, blah, blah. I was like, yes, where do I learn that? But my brain isn't going to be able to necessarily, like I've tried to learn nonviolent communication, those things. It's like, I get it when I'm watching the video, but bringing it into practice when I'm already worrying about 15 other thoughts at once and how to communicate it is not that. It's like honoring our difference of ability. And yet at the same time, that doesn't mean that therefore all language should go out the window and everyone should communicate how I communicate and not learn the beautiful way that you just communicated. But like that, it doesn't mean everyone who's doing it is necessarily doing it for nefarious reasons. We're trying to get our point across as
absolutely
articulately as possible.
But if we can't have conversations, it's actually super tragic. So people are brought up in a society that uses a lot of communication skills that get in the way of real authentic connecting in the moment, where our actual joy and happiness exist. And it's so tragic. Like when I think of communication skills and the kind of default conversational culture that we inherited, I think so often of all the kids who are abused by grown-ups and they don't have anybody to go and speak to. They don't know how to. It hasn't been modeled for them to go and speak to someone and share it with them what happened. And so they get abused for like years and they don't share it. It's just super tragic, and it all happens to do with like our inherited conversational culture, which isn't going to change overnight, but I actually believe that it could change pretty quick. I think that 10, 15, 20 years is actually plenty of time given the benefit that it holds for people. But yeah, we're all going to be stumbling all the time.
One thing on the road to goodness with neurodiversity, and not everyone has this who has neurodiversity, but I do find if I'm around people who speak in a certain way, I can't consciously pick it up. I can't be like, and how do you do it? And A to B equals what? But naturally, the inflections and the language and the skills become more so naturally.
Yeah, that's a key thing to change the culture for everybody, to give them the motivation, maybe, I don't know, so that they can train, they can grow and train in each other.
So where would one learn about safe conversations?
Oh, you could look online. There's like probably they have a course actually now. It was like $99 for a pretty amazing course. I think they extended it past Valentine's Day, but that I think is a tremendous value. Seriously life-changing information. Or they have a 5-hour thing of their old all-day workshop on YouTube. You can probably find it. But that's slow. That's a whole day of like investment in that. But it's good if you want to really learn how to have a really good conversation with someone, where you open up really challenging things and can make progress toward living in a shared reality with better understanding and love and empathy and honoring and stuff like that. That would be a really positive thing to do. Watch that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think have you learned nonviolent communication? Do you know nonviolent communication? Do you think is this easier or more intuitive, or what is the difference?
I'd say to learn them both is good, and to use a label that's not a nonviolent communication label. I think they might be on a par if I had to guess. I
find nonviolent communication very non-intuitive. Like I'm like, yes, we all need our needs met, but like in this moment, how do we actually look for that and not hear anyway? So yeah, I will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Because what my projects are, I came into this space looking for sense making, and now my projects are all about conversation and all about communication and figuring out, like, that's my projects, conversation. Yes. So figuring out how to do that is imperative.
That is the sweet spot of human development, is better communication. The only reason we live in a shared reality around like 9/11 or with, vaccines and autism or climate change is because we don't know how to communicate. We don't have the tools to communicate. It's super tragic for humanity. I mean, when I think about the Iraq War and the lies that happened leading up to the Iraq War, and no one went to jail because of that, and millions of people died, that's just because of communication, an inability for all of us to get on the same page. And so anyway, it's super tragic, the costs that we're bearing because of that.
Absolutely. And they're just going to get more. I love, because although I can't necessarily do the communication piece of it as well as I would like, this thing that you talk to about, like, ideology divides us and the other things bring us together. And so the more we can concentrate on our needs, even if they're in conflict, and our emotions without emoting at you, right? Getting angry at you, but like, yeah, I feel anger. Maybe it's not your responsibility. Maybe it is, but like, I feel anger. And so like, that is more of the tools I think I've tapped into naturally, is like, okay, let's not talk about, are you pro-life or pro-choice? Do you believe in climate change or don't you? Do you think vaccines cause autism? Because that's ideology. It's like, let's look instead at what is your need around vaccines do or don't, right? Like, what is proper information is what I want, right? Like, it's what is the actual need, and how do we not come into division? A conservative and a Republican can come together and have that was wrong. Conservative and Republican could totally across the border of Canada and the United States. But the right and left political divide can come together and have a conversation around any of those things. And if you don't bring up politics, if you're not allowed to bring up politics, it divides you. But if you bring up politics, it divides you. And so allowing it without forcing it is like, yeah, you're a conservative and I'm a NDP or Green Party, and we can still find common grounds. And figuring out those pieces, I think, is a powerful step forward.
Yeah, I tend to think that that there's interpersonal communication, which is about feelings and needs, and then there's more of a public space, which Concordis is meant to address, which is more the ideas and evidence around things. So we do have feelings around, like, whether vaccines cause autism and stuff, but it's not that germane. It's just based on, like, triggering messaging we've read in the media, whether we believe it or don't believe it. Very identity-based things or emotion-laden propaganda type things. But there's actual evidence and scientific research that's been done, and we just need to have access to it. And we need to see, what do doctors, like research scientists, what sways their beliefs on it, and then see, are they divided as a community? I don't think that they are. I think we could, or if they are, we can introduce evidence and get them all into the same page so that they can all look at the best evidence on both sides, and then maybe a lot of them would change their minds. I don't know. We just have to go about that process. So anyway, that's helpful. But
we're almost at the hour, but there was this conversation debate I got into, Game B adjacent, of like, someone was like, if we had communism, we would cure COVID. I was like, what? I don't understand. Have you not talked to scientists? Have you not been into scientific debate? Scientists never come to consensus. They come to, like, yes, we agree or disagree with a study, and so I liked what you said before about talking to people like climate change. Even if 97% of climate scientists agree, a lot of that is game A, a lot, or not, but like a lot of it is based on, if I say no, do you know how, like, if everyone says yes and I say no, I'm a crackpot. No one's believing me. No one's believing anything that comes out of my mouth. So I have to say yes, even if, or, to be able to have the nuance and be like, yeah, I think humans are responsible for climate change, but here's all the broken science. Here's all the broken pieces, and having that teased apart. So it's not 97% of scientists agree. It's like 97% of scientists think that, yes, we should take action because it's our best option. Or here's what they believe on, like, is carbon causing it? Or, like littler pieces of it, because we do to these broad overarching ideologies of, like, you're a climate denier or a climate change activist, instead of any kind of nuance. And science exists in the nuance. And so it's like the other people who aren't scientists expect scientists to come out with we took a vote and we all 100% agree on this, and it's never going to happen. In fact, doctors are the worst for that because they just go to medical school, take the like group think. Like, it's like, have you actually studied this? Well, no, the pharmaceutical company told me this is the best cure for cancer, but they're really trustworthy. Why? Like, knowing the bite model in cult behavior, which is a little thing I'm into at the moment, is like your behavior, your information, your thoughts, and your emotions. Are they being controlled? And I think the answer is yes, by all the time by society. You don't have to be in a cult. All of those 4 things are absolutely being controlled all of the time. So which cult do you want to be in? Or being aware, I'm not in a cult. I'm going to behave how I'm going to behave, and I'm going to use the information I'm going to use. But know that a lot of the time you're going to be subconscious and be in that behavior. And sorry, that was just coming up this week.
So. Super beautiful that you just brought that up, because you look at Trump, Trump's following is like a cult. They wave flags and banners and they think he has superhuman abilities and stuff. And I suspect that they believe that and they're drawn into that because of the information that they have seen. And I would be super interested to see the bite model be applied to the information that they get. I bet that I would be shocked if it didn't line up pretty well. Mm-hmm. But I'd also like to say that it speaks to active measures, actually, because what you want to do is you want to take a community and you want to create very like simplistic ideas of like who's the perpetrator, who's the victim, who's the rescuer, and you want different communities to apply those roles in different ways. So for immigrants, conservatives think the immigrants are like all a bunch of like perpetrators. Liberals think the immigrants are a bunch of victims. And you just take any public policy debate, it's not really a debate, you just place those labels in different ways in different communities, and then you get people to argue with them. And so it's just a matter of really destabilizing people emotionally and triangulating them around different applications of those dramatic roles. And that's the information system that we live in. And so it actually does create this kind of cult primarily identity-based political behavior.
Absolutely. I think we can see that fairly clearly with what went on for 4 years under Trump. However, there's also the other side of like, right, but if I see something good about Trump, I'm not believing it because I'm on the other side of that cult. I'm in the anti-Trump cult.
Yes, that's
and
right.
How much of that is my thought and how much of that is because other people who are anti-Trump think the same thing and have given me that information. What kind of information would I need to be on the other, to see him as benevolent's the wrong word, but like neither good nor bad, right? Just neutral. Like, nope, don't think I'm going to get there. Like, it's like, so I'm in a cult, right? Like, but it's my own thoughts, but like to not be open at all to the fact that it might have been manipulated by the media is like to realize when we're in the cult and not because putting it on the other is always putting yourself in a cult is a little bit what I was trying to explain, but talking around.
Did I hear you say that it would be good for us to consider the possibility that we ourselves are in a cult, that our side has also been brainwashed and have this kind of cultish behavior? Yeah.
I think we all are in a cult all of the time. It's which one are you in? Or if you have to consciously remove yourself from it in the moment. You can't go through life unconsciously and not be in a cult. A cult of society, right? Like society is a cult. It's just the biggest one. It's the 97% of scientists agree, right?
Yeah. I would love to continue the conversation. I guess we're over time though.
Yes, Game B conversations always get good around this. So we can end the broadcast. We came to a kind of conclusion during this or a solution for this, the roundtables. We're going to post in the events space in the new Game B group. What is it? The Mighty Networks group. Create an event, and if there's at least 2 people interested in doing a roundtable that week, not watching it, but participating in it and having a video, we need to probably make that clear as well. Then we will host it, and otherwise there won't be one. So there won't be one every Saturday. There will be one every Saturday where there's 2 of us who are interested in hosting one, plus either Adriel or I who have the StreamYard stuff. So that is what will be happening going forward. Look for it in the Game B space on Facebook, which is Game B Projects, and the new Mighty Networks, which I don't know, but you can get it from Game B. Just the Game B group on Facebook. All right. Thank you. And Team Broadcast by YouTube and Facebook.
Thank you so much.